I'll continue. Today I'll be introducing Janet Naclia, Brianna Morin, and Karli Crowshoe. So Janet Naclia is the Director of People and Programs with the Alberta Recreation and Parks Association, or ARPA for short. And her current focus is working in collaboration with Indigenous communities across Alberta. Brianna Morin is a program officer with ARPA's Communities Choose Well initiative. In her role, she is dedicated to supporting Indigenous champions and partners by facilitating virtual gatherings and implementing community development tools and resources for all. And lastly, Karli Crowshoe is a mother, creator, dancer, and ceremonialist from the Piikani Nation and possesses Nez Peace roots. Karli is a strong advocate for working mothers and creating spaces for Indigenous women in the work field. Karli is a contractor for ARPA who works with the Elders Knowledge Circle and owns the Chief's Daughter Creations for the Generations. And today, Janet, Brianna, and Karli will be speaking on ARPA's Elder Capacity Building Culture Camp. So whenever you guys are ready, take it away.
Perfect. And you're able to pin us? Are we pinned? Don't forget.
I believe I have pinned you guys.
Okay.
Let me try again, just in case.
And thank you for that awesome intro.
No problem. Okay.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you. Perfect. So welcome everyone. And yes, my name is Janet Naclia. I should also say I do have traditional names. Niamaskiki Kihiu Esquale. That name was given to me by Daryl and Linda Brass of the Medewan Lodge. And Nistawanagok Amskapitaki. So that name, it's my Blackfoot name. It means Southern Eagle Woman, which was given to me by John Chief Moon Sr. Of the Piikani Nation. And I mentioned this just to set context, because what we're also going to do is we're going to do a smudge. I mean, I'm going to open with a smudge today. We are talking about our elders camp and what we have learned from being with the elders and the work that we do there. And our elders always say that smudging is important to open. If we're talking about good things, we need to talk about things in a good way. So I will do a smudge to open, like I said, to open in a good way. Feel free to join us if you want, and if you don't, that's okay. To pray in the way that's important to you. And if that's if prayer is not your thing, just to send good thoughts to those who are here today and to the presenters all throughout the conference. So I'm just going to start my smudge. I am here in Wakinstis, which is the traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, also known as Calgary, Alberta. So I do have some sweetgrass in this smudge to honor the place that I am, because a lot of the things we're talking about is so much about geography and place. So first, I'm just going to smudge myself. I will send the smudge out to you in a good way as well. And like I said, the smudge is to set a ethical space, a safe space for us to have conversation. It's so for Brianna and Karli and myself. So we're truthful and we have we speak to you in a good way about our learnings. And for all those who are with us today, joining us, it's for you as well, so that you can take this in and take it out to your community as well in a good way. So thank you for that smudge. And so, as I mentioned, so my name is Janet. It's interesting, Dr. Mills was saying how the conference has been here for 9 years. We at ARPA, Alberta Recreation Parks Association, have actually been here since the beginning as well. So this is my 9th year. We have presented, we've done various things. So it's definitely amazing to see this here almost a decade. So it's a great honor to be invited to participate today. Just a quick note that ARPA is a nonprofit provincial organization that does recreation. So we use recreation and parks and wellness as a catalyst for community building. So that really is kind of the mandate that we're here under. And one of the biggest things we have been doing, so we very much look at our community as family. I was saying to Brianna and Karli that this community, it's such a beautiful and gentle community, and everyone is so welcoming. So they're very excited to be here today. And part of our role, we feel, is to help engage and to mentor young leaders, like young women leaders, and especially young Indigenous women leaders. So I'm very excited to have Karli and Brianna with me today. And so, oh, and I should also say too, transparency's sake, that I am non-Indigenous, an ally settler. So I think it's always good to know the context and the perception or the perspective of which the presenter is giving information. So I would like to declare that as well. I am from Alberta, born and raised in Fort McMurray. I'm one of those, but like I said, I'm now here in Mohkinstsis in Calgary. So I just wanted to say that as well as part of my introduction. So with that, I would like to invite Brianna and Karli to introduce themselves. So Brianna, if you'd like to go first and introduce yourself, that would be awesome.
Sure. Thanks, Janet. Yeah, hello, everyone. As you know, I'm Brianna Morin. I am a program officer of engagement and reconciliation with Communities Choose Well, which is a program of the Alberta Recreation and Parks Association. And I would like to acknowledge that I am calling in from Amiskwitchi, Waskahigan. I'm working on my pronunciation for that, but that is the Cree name for Edmonton, Alberta, here in Treaty 6 territory. And it is a place that is where I call home. It's where I've been born and raised. A little bit about me is that I am Cree mixed with a little bit of Métis from my dad's side. And on my mother's side, I am Ukrainian, English, and French. And so I actually grew up away from the culture. And so my journey of learning about my Indigenous roots has really unfolded in the last year, getting to work with ARPA. And it's something that I feel very lucky that I get to connect my Indigenous roots and the teachings from my dad with a lot of my work experiences. So my dad is actually from the Piikani Nation, which is just west of Edmonton here. And it's something that I'm proud to say, but I've been learning. We come from a long line of chiefs. There are a long line of chiefs on my dad's side. And it's something that I like to share because I think it's very, very cool that I've been able to learn. So I'm just really excited to be here with all of you today, and I will pass it over to Karli.
Thanks, Brianna. Hi, good afternoon. Oki Nistini Danagu Adan. Hello, my name is Karli Crowshoe. I'm from the Piikani Nation. I started working as a contractor with ARPA to help them with the Elders Knowledge Circle in becoming basically their own business. So it's really exciting work, and right now we're doing bylaws and governance structure based around Indigenous ways of knowing and being. So super excited. I would say I would classify it as like a pioneering type job. So really exciting work. I also own a small business. It's called The Chief's Daughter, where I create generational artwork that you can pass down to your children. I've been doing that for a few years now. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here. And this is my first year presenting. So I'm excited to speak about the Elders Camp.
Thank you, Karli and Brianna. That was amazing. All right, so let's start where we're at. I am going to share a presentation, like a screen with everybody. And just so you know, the flow, because I know sometimes there's people who like know the big picture flow of things. I will story tell a bit at the front because I have kind of more of the background of the project that we're working on. Karli and Brianna are invited to jump in and add anything. There are some sections where they will speak the leads on certain sections, and then we'll have at the end wrap up, kind of talk a bit about final thoughts as to how the camp affected them. So that's how we're going to roll today. So I'm going to share my screen. Perfect. So everyone can see that, I'm assuming? Yes. Okay. So we're here today to talk about our Elders Camp. And this was, okay, so here is the story. So back in 2017, 2018, because we always know it's the best way to learn something is to hear it as a story. We connected with an elder named Dr. Reg Crowshoe and his wife, Rose Crowshoe. So Reg is the former chief of the Piikani Nation. They're both traditional knowledge holders and bundle holders and very respected Blackfoot elders here within the territory. They also happen to be Karli's grandparents, so there is a connection there that we'll talk a bit about as well. And it's interesting, as we say about family, at ARPA, we started working with Reg and Rose. It was like a work relationship. Over the years, it very much became more of we call it here like making relatives. I'm sure you've all heard that, but we're looking at the idea of what does making relatives look like as an organizational perspective? How do the people we work with, they're more than just colleagues, are actually family. And so we were really excited when Karli herself joined our team. It just seems like kind of a full circle continuum that we started with Reg and Rose, and then we are now working with Karli. So back in 2017-18, so after the TRC action items came out, we connect with Reg and Rose because Reg was on a mission, and that was to deal with elder capacity issues within the Treaty 7 area. And so the Treaty 7 area, that includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, Stoney Nakoda, and Tsuut'ina. So all the nations basically surrounding Calgary. And it just became apparent that once the TRC was released, there was this tidal wave of requests of people looking to engage with elders, but no one really knew how to do that. And the elders within the area, it was a small group. So because of intergenerational trauma, because of residential schools, there was a very small group of elders that were getting stressed out and overused because of all of this interest in them. Plus, there was this very obvious need for elder capacity building because of what I just mentioned. So people assume, I'm sure no one on this call assumes, but just because you're a senior and you're Indigenous, you're an elder. But there was those huge gaping holes in terms of knowledge translation and what that actually means. Sorry, click here. And so basically, sorry, and I just wanted to show that because that actually was Reg and Rose's, that's a picture of Reg and Rose from the culture camp. And so we connected with Reg and Rose. Partly it was to do with this elder capacity, but we also started working with them in terms of recreation and parks work as well. So one thing that we did, and Karli was involved in this, was I think 2017-18, we did a Blackfoot tea dance ceremony. And if Karli wants, you could talk about that later. But we brought elders together to discuss cultural use of parks and systemic racism within the park system. So we were working with the elders doing like obvious parks things, but then Reg and the elders came to us and they said, hey, you know what? We need some support. There is a definite systemic poverty or systems poverty where a lot of money is going towards mainstream organizations, but not a lot is going towards like the verbal Indigenous systems. What can you do to help us? And we're like, yeah, like we need this. We need to help out because we access elders. We live in this community. A lot of this work, I'm based in Calgary. So it made sense to do this work in Treaty 7. And we're like, what can we do as helpers that will actually have a larger impact on the system? So the elders, and I should say the elders, we'll get to that in a second, but it's like 25 plus multi-nation elders. So it is a fairly large group, very informal. And Karli was mentioned at the beginning, we are working to bring them together as an actual nonprofit. That's part of our project we're working on now. And they're like, well, you know, we need to get together and do learning. We need to fill that gap. We need to find out how we do that generational transfer with people. And so we went hunting for grants. We did all these things. We found some money, like, we're always hunting for money, corporations, foundations, the feds, Alberta, private donations, whatever, to make this happen. And we had our first camp like 5 years ago, but the elders said, you know, we want to have a camp with youth and elders, because if the youth don't learn how to do these things, who are the next generation? So we proceeded and we had some camps with elders and youth, but then something happened, something big in all of our world, and that was COVID. So COVID happened in 2020, and the elders, it shook them. It shook all of us, obviously, but they're like, holy snap, you know, we're vulnerable. People are passing away. We have elders who are like, not like libraries. They hold all this knowledge. What happens if we lose an elder before this information is also passed on to other elders. So while that youth piece, so we did youth camps for 3-4 years. It's becoming a blur now, 4 years, I think. And with partners, so we partner with like Muskanawa, which is a social service Indigenous serving organization in Calgary, Trellis, which used to be the Boys and Girls Club for youth, and the Aboriginal Friendship Center as well. A gentleman named Adrian Goulet is huge in this work. He's our partner of ours. So we're doing this work and the elders are like, okay, snap, like what happens if we don't pass this on to each other and to other up and coming elders? So you've heard the term elders in the making, elder apprentices, but you know, an elder, because they're like, if we don't have elders, there's no one to treat the youth. There's no one to actually service the community. Like we're in a dire situation. And actually, and I have to mention this too. So at the time, an elder who was key in this group did pass away. So Daphne Good Eagle did pass away, and it really shook everybody. And she's a Blackfoot knowledge holder, and they're like, okay, we've lost Daphne. We're really concerned about what this looks like. We need to boost the elder capacity within Treaty 7. And so elder capacity meant, and okay, so that's kind of the background. So I'm just actually going to go like to who our elders are. Hold on, sorry. Okay, and so they're like, all right, so obviously we've done work with the youth. We now need to do work with the elders themselves and the elders in the making. And so who is an elder in the making? So as I said before, we have 25, well, like 30 now elders who are within this group. They informally, they did actually get together. They have a name. It's the Elders Knowledge Circle. So they were working informally as a loose knit group of elders under Dr. Crowshoe and Rose for many years. They're now called the Elders Knowledge Circle. The prime group of elders include Blackfoot elders. So elders from the Treaty 7 area. So there's Blackfoot elders, elders from Tsuut'ina, Stoney elders, but there's also elders who live in Calgary, understanding that it's an urban center now, and there's many different types of people within Calgary. So Métis elders, Saulteaux, Cree Métis, we have Inuit, an Inuit elder. So there actually is a wide range of elders. And so talking to Dr. Crowshoe, he has said that people have approached him because it's very unusual to have so many multi-nation elders working together on one project. So that is something that's really interesting. And then who are the elders in the making? So those were like, okay, so who are these people? And often they were ceremonialists in training. So like Karli herself would be one of the elders in the making. It could be a 40-year-old, someone. We have, for example, we have 2 Medewan Lodge holders, Daryl and Linda Brass. Daryl Sr. passed away, sadly. And so his son, Daryl Jr. stepped up to take Medewan Lodge on with his mom as a ceremonial partner. So a younger gentleman who's like 40, he's stepping into that role. But then we also had elders who were 70 or 80 who, due to colonization and residential schools, never were able to take on that role. So who the elders in the making, that varied. So at one point we had like 50, so we at this camp last year, we had 50 elders and elders in the making. And I'm just going to go back here. Can I go back? No, I can't go back. So those elders were from, and sorry, I should say this is actually a great shot too. Those were the elders, and we were on the land. So a connection that we have directly to ARPA was that we do a lot of land-based learnings. And so we were on a site called Camp Adventure. It's within the Kananaskis area. That teepee that you saw at the very beginning was where that's our hotel for Brianna and I. That's where we stayed. So it was very much on the land. And so that it was more COVID safe, obviously. We're outdoors, but it was that key connection to geographical location and to place. So Karli and Brianna, is there anything you want to say at this point about the elders and who the elders were there before we move on to the ceremonial piece?
Yeah.
Hold on. Sorry, I'm actually gonna, I can go back. Sorry.
Oh, no.
One step, one thing. Hold on. Now I'm interrupting you. This is the teepee. This is the land. This is where Brianna and I were staying. I'll go back to this elders thing for you, Karli. I also want to acknowledge that this is Evelyn Kelman and Debbie Kelman, who are amazing. I love this shot because Evelyn was the best dressed elder the whole camp, and also Karli, your great aunt.
My great
So,
aunt.
yeah, so I will now turn it over to you or Brianna if you have anything to say about like the elders before we move on to why we were there actually.
Yeah, I think it was an amazing experience because having all the elders there to like partake and learn from each other was an experience that you're never going to be able to recreate anywhere else. And each day there was a different ceremony from a different background. So one day we had a Blackfoot ceremony, another day we had the Medeowan Lodge, things I've never experienced because personally I'm Blackfoot and a ceremonialist. It was just amazing to see elders learning from elders. And it's so important to know as like us as Indigenous people, getting back to the roots of the transfer of knowledge is it gathering itself. That gathering is super important to like help continue on that learning. Like we said with the youth and the elders, that connection is necessary for our growth and survival and sustainability, I feel. So all the elders there, it was great. It was I would say it was like an intimate gathering, even though there was many of us there. And it was just amazing to watch elders learn, because I don't think people really get to see that happening these days. But just to see other elders learning from other elders, it was magical. And then their helpers learning from the elders, it was amazing. So what I got from that, it was learning is a lifelong journey, definitely.
True. And sorry, Brianna.
I'd just like to add, yeah, from the perspective of not growing up around the culture at all, I felt like I was just being a sponge the entire time. And I felt very privileged and lucky that I got to witness all of these different ceremonies and traditions and practices come together. And I'll echo Karli and say, yeah, just everyone was learning from each other and everyone was connecting. And it was it felt like a big family event in a way. And I think just really briefly, based on the session I actually attended this morning with Sandra Lamouche, she mentioned, I wrote it down on my computer, how the importance of elders sharing knowledge in a healthy and sustainable way. And I think our culture camp was just the epitome of that, and getting to see them passing down that knowledge to family members and helpers and youth was really refreshing to witness. So that's my little piece there.
Awesome. You stole my quote. So good job. Yeah, I saw that too. I'm like, yay, what a good thing we're following. And so exactly. So as Karli was, so on this slide, you see, so this is Dr. Reg Crowshoe, and it's hilarious because every picture we have of him, he's so happy because this was always a dream of his to do this camp. So here he is. This is an interesting shot. So there, Reg is on the right, and then on the left is a gentleman named Tyler McAnow, who is a band council member for Ermineskin Cree Nation. So Reg is Blackfoot, and then Tyler's Cree. So it actually shows that intertribal learning. And Reg will often say, pre-colonization, there was a lot of learning exchange and knowledge amongst the nations, and it wasn't until reservations and that imposition of travel restrictions did the nation stop sharing and stop working together, and it actually divided the nations, divided power, and weakened the communities. And so to actually bring the elders back Tyler himself, like he's spoken at the UN on the rights of the child. He's now becoming a lawyer. So he is one of those up and coming elders, even from a different nation and a different community. But, even like Reg and the other elders, regardless of what nation they're from, took on their responsibility of teaching him the ways. And so I think that's really interesting. Like Karli mentioned, so it was a 5-day camp, to give you some context. 5-day camp on the land overnight. So many of the elders stayed in RVs, or we stayed in teepees or in cabins, like you see kind of the facilities behind us. And then every day we would open, like Karli said, with a ceremony. So each nation was responsible. If there was a Cree, a Blackfoot, Medeowan, and the Stoney Nakoda did a, because we were within Stoney Nakoda territory in the Kananaskis. And so each nation opened. So you did have a chance to witness and be immersed in that. Everyone, they all had their own helpers or brought on international helpers to teach that as well. So there was that kind of thing. And then it is funny because the agenda just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So then we had a powwow. It was supposed to be like a drum circle. And then we had a powwow, which is hilarious. And then part of the powwow, we were able to witness this. So what you see, and maybe Karli, I'll get you to speak on this, because this is the only time I'll ever witness this in my lifetime, but was a headdress transfer, a chief headdress transfer, correct, to Reg. So do you want to say a little bit about this headdress and then we could move on?
Yeah, so this headdress that he's making, it's actually just a trailer. So the long part, so at the top there's a headdress, and then down, all the feathers going down is connected to, I think he put it on a piece of rawhide, but it's a trailer that carries all of these feathers. So personally, I can't speak about the transfer because I've never been transferred headdress trailer. So, and it's usually dedicated to men. But I can talk about the process of preparing for the ceremony and like the impact that it had. So a lot of people say, so going back to our roots as Indigenous people and ceremony, what's really important when it comes to transferring, especially transferring rights to wear something, to sing something, to do something, it has to be transferred in front of a group of people. And that's really important because this group of people are in charge of what I would like to say as like a verification piece. So you're in charge of self-policing yourself when it comes to ceremony. But these people that come and witness it happening, they're the ones who are going to go tell people about what happened. So it's that orality piece of our culture that's super, super important that we can't let go of, are all these elders being in this group. And what COVID almost took away from us is these elders being present in this group at this transfer that my grandfather received by an elder. It's so funny because this elder, he was trying to get a hold of him forever. We even pushed the transfer back a day because he got lost. So we always think like, oh, things happen for a reason. Everything is meant to happen for a reason. And when it did happen, everything was ready because that day that he was supposed to come, I don't think my grandpa was done his headdress because in this picture, he's still working on it. So a lot of people don't see behind the whole, like behind the ceremony, the preparation. He had to make the headdress and he had to find all those eagle feathers. He had to prepare the blankets and the payment that he was going to give to the ceremonialist. So it was a long process that he was talking about. I think for their 50th wedding anniversary, my grandfather was planning to get his headdress transferred, but because of COVID, 2 years later, they had to end up doing it. So it was really like a great experience for everyone. And like Janet said, it was like a dream come true for him. Like, look at him. He's like really happy about this moment.
And there's another happy moment, which we'll get to, where Brianna will talk about. So thank you, Karli, for that. And I think too, yeah, it was supposed to happen at his 50th wedding anniversary by COVID. So this again, so what happened was COVID disrupted the system that was already disrupted. And so within having those witnesses of those elders, we were actually, or the elders themselves, because I should say too, the elders determined the agenda. The elders determined what they wanted to do. What us at ARPA did with like the helpers like Brianna and Karli was we just enabled them to do it, got out of their way. We made sure there was food. Here, I'm going to actually go to the next slide. We made sure that there was meeting space, there was food, all the things that they needed to do their things, we made sure it was there. And because for 2 years, these elders had only seen each other on Zoom and were unable to have that connection, oral piece really. And so that's why the powwow happened, what Reg did the transfer, and then all of these elders that were here were able to be the witnesses to those things and to increase their learning as us as helpers as well. So I'm just going to go. So the other thing we did, so one obviously was, so ceremony was the introduction of ceremony. Now I should say for clarification purposes is that while ceremony happened, the point of this group is that they're not so much a group of people doing sacred things. The elders themselves independently and individually have often the right to do sacred things. And then there they have their sacred helpers, they have their processes and their transfers, and a lot of those things happen outside of the camp. The camp itself, while there was ceremony, because it would be weird not having ceremony within a group of elders, and there were teachings around ceremony, it really was about elder business. And so a lot of the things that stressed with this group is that it is about technicians. I think like Dr. Crowshoe will mention like technicians, but like literally elder building capacity. What is it to do a smudge to open a room? Like you don't have to give names. You don't have to say, do a sacred name to something, but you could open a smudge in a gathering. Like, how do you do things that are the technical parts of being an elder, opposed to say being a sacred elder? So there is definitely the distinction between that. So for example, speaking of names, so we then part of the what we did as well was taking care of elder business. So they had the opportunity to get together. There's me looking very official, talk. I don't know what I'm doing. I think there's Karli too. Karli's in there. But like they wanted to talk about naming, because since the TRC, and we've heard already a few times mention the children that were found in BC, the 215 children, suddenly buildings are being renamed all over the place. Please don't name them after people. Like it's a lesson we were learning in history. Don't name your building after someone, name it after a flower. And so the elders are like, oh God, like how are you naming things? How do we name, who has the right to name things? So they actually talked a lot about technical stuff. As Karli also said, we're working with this group of elders to transition them into a nonprofit so that they're they want to be self-sustaining. Often at ARPA, we work as their fiscal. But they're like, nope, we want to have our own, we want to be our own fiscal, we want to be self-sustaining, have our own ED. And so that's kind of that piece as well in terms of looking to the future. So we have a grant with the Calgary Foundation to help transition them into that. And one of Karli's main roles is helping with that transition. And as she mentioned, it's like paralleling a bylaw. You've all probably written a bylaw as a nonprofit, and what does that look like with elders in an oral tradition? So doing that paralleling, like leadership selection, you think it's easy getting a bank. It's not when you have like 25 elders trying to decide their business. So like we're doing those things too. So we talked about that. Like they talked about what's our name? What are we doing? Like, so there was actual elder business that kind of happened, and that piece about learning skills, like that lifelong learning that Karli mentioned. So Karli or Brianna, anything you want to add to that piece?
I think also mentioning how long a process takes about getting a business together, especially with a group of elders. It really it really humbles you though, because working and being educated in this Western culture and in these institutions, you're meant to like fast track things, make things happen, and then just stepping back and working with the elders, doing things, as they like to say, in the right way, with prayer and figuring out their bylaws. I think is really amazing. It's an amazing experience to be a part of.
Oh yeah. And I think too, like with you, Brianna, being immersed with so many elders, too, like what it's like to be a helper, right? And I think that's part, and I think you'll probably touch on that later, but as much as the elders were learning how to be elders, we did have a generation of people learning how to be helpers. Like, when do you serve their tea? How do you get their, like, how do you help them? Like, what's the role of someone who is a helper, I would say like a camp helper, but also a helper, an administrative helper in terms of this context when you have like 30 multi-nation elders who need the help. So I think that we had our inter-organization or inter-agency people. So various agencies donated like helpers. And so we ran the camp, we were the background people, and that's how we kind of got the staffing organized.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to add that despite not being a specific elder in the making helper, it was neat for me to witness some of the younger men that were being taught how to do certain things within ceremony. And that was just a really neat thing to see. And yeah, I just echo everything that Karli has said, and I'll touch on it a little later about my other role as well. So go ahead, Janet.
Perfect. Okay. So 3 things were happening. One was the ceremonial piece. So the elders could return to ceremony, again, on the land, in a group, multi-nation elders. 2, elder capacity building. So we did, like I said here, that basic technical aspect of being an elder. And the 3rd thing happened. And so when I first met Dr. Crowshoe, he said, Janet, I have a dream. And I'm like, is it to change the system? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, he's like, but that's not the dream I'm talking about. I'm like, is it to change the system from within? Is it to challenge the status quo? Is it to shake it up? And he said, yeah, but that's not my real dream. And I'm like, okay, hold on. So here's the real dream. So one of the real dreams that Dr. Crowshoe has forever had was an elders talent show, which is hilarious. And so, I don't know if I could, can you actually hear? I'm going to move this square over here. And so we had a talent show, and if you could see Reg's face, and it's hilarious too, because when we did a debrief with everybody, especially Reg, we said, what was your favorite part? Like you'd assume like that transfer of that like head chief headdress would be it. No, the talent show was his favorite thing. And so what this was, okay, first of all, I just have to say the obvious, that is not Elvis. That in fact is Daryl Brass, who we mentioned, was the Medewan. He's a Medewan lodge holder who dressed up like Elvis, and the elders all loved it. And so the whole idea was that healing had to happen. So there was a lot of talk about, like, obviously the children that were found, intergenerational trauma, all the residential school, COVID, the isolation, the mental stress, the loss, the death. Like so many elders passed away, even to this point that we had this camp, that they're like, you know what? We just want to get together and to sing and to dance and to tell jokes and to tell poetry and be together in a group and have fun. And it was fascinating to me because it really showed the role that recreation has in healing. And so I have a story I'm going to tell, and then I'll pass it over to Brianna, because one of Brianna's job at Culture Camp was organizing the Elders Talent Show, which is this, oh my God, this Reg's face, this makes me laugh. He was so happy. And so here's the story. And this is the story I like to tell about, like my key takeaway from Culture Camp. There were 2 elders who came from they're from Stoney, and sisters. So one rarely spoke. She was the older of the sister, and the one younger sister spoke often on behalf of them. So Culture Camp talent show day came, and everyone was signing up with their talents, and they got up and they sang some traditional Stoney songs. One was hilarious. So one was really funny. Like it was a very funny story, and they had their drums and took it very seriously. And the next day they told us a story. They said they sang their songs, they left the camp, they got in the car, they giggled like little girls and laughed all their way home. And the older sister, who never talked, she said, you know, residential school, it stole my voice from me. And until that moment, I stood up and I sang that song again, I realized I had my voice back. And we're like, oh my God, like we don't realize the power that recreation has, or gatherings, or culture, or song and dance, all these things that we do as a community, but was taken from us because of COVID and various other things. Like even that session you mentioned, Brianna, like how dance was outlawed. how those particular pieces have the ability to actually heal. And Karli and I talked after, and we're like, wow, I don't know why we didn't think about this, but obviously the outcome of the camp was like ceremony, cultural capacity, and elders getting together, but it was also about healing. And why that wasn't an obvious outcome, I don't know why. We were tired. It was a long summer, but that healing point became one of the key takeaways that actually happened with the elders healing together. So Brianna, I'll turn it over to you as the mastermind behind the, we brought in a band. We hired an MC. It was very serious. So Brianna.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record. Everything you're saying is exactly what I was going to say, how, yeah, we really wanted to just bring the elders together, give them that chance to connect with each other through recreation. I believe we had this on the last night of camp, so it was really an opportunity to de-stress and come together as a group. And yeah, they performed traditional songs and dances. They told stories and jokes, and there was just a whole range of talents. Call it a talent show, but it definitely also was a cultural celebration because we got to see so many different cultures celebrated in this night. And so really myself and a colleague who's not here, but who I work with, we were excited that we had the opportunity to help make it a success. We were really truly just the facilitators who helped maybe put a general outline together, but we really just wanted the elders, and like Janet had mentioned earlier on, that this whole week is really for the elders. They design what they want to do. They design what they want to see. And so with the talent show, it was, okay, let's put together what they're wanting to see and wanting to share. And they did that. I think what was important in this aspect is that it was a moment of creativity for them to kind of just let go and reconnect with just that inner child. And I think that's a huge component of recreation and healing, like Janet was mentioning. And so really I'm not going to run through how to design a talent show. I think it's all self-explanatory. It was more so the purpose of focusing on that recreation lens and just connecting people together. And so seeing all that laughter and smiling and just moving our bodies as well, those are all components that can help contribute to healing. And so that kind of leads into my overall takeaway, which I'll hold off. I think we have some more to talk about before that, but yeah, it was just a great time. And I feel very lucky that I was able to help be a part of it.
Well, and Dr. Roslyn was saying too, I know Dr. Roz, we're very close. It's been 10 years now. I could call her that. At the beginning, she said the vision, right? Physical activity saves lives. And we were like, wow, physical activity does save lives. And so does dance and music and culture and laughter. And you've got to mention like another Crowshoe, Shirley Crowshoe. I don't know how old Shirley is. I shouldn't give away her age, but she got up and did a rap in Blackfoot. Like she was rapping in Blackfoot. It was amazing. It was hilarious. So anything you want to add to that, Karli, as a witness to the whole talent show and knowing your grandfather's dream finally came true after how many years?
Yeah, I just think it was so amazing. And then just like going back to like how holistic our culture is, because growing up culturally, speaking for myself, going to one area and getting everything you need from it, like when it comes to culture, love, experience, like all of these things you get in one place. And living in the city, it's so broken up. You have to go to these different institutions to gain all of those things for your wellness. So seeing all of these elders brought to one place and they were taken care of like spiritually, and you could really tell how much everyone healed from it. It was truly like a healing experience to watch. And I wanted to mention too, something like magical was like, at some point you can see those elders as children. Like you can see them going back to like their childhood, especially during the talent night and interacting with each other. It was a great experience.
Awesome. It was magical.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't believe how many pictures Daryl took of especially the elder ladies. They absolutely adored Elvis Daryl. So that's hilarious. If anyone wants to see some pictures, we have some later. Okay, so I am now then going to do some final thoughts. And yeah, so I think maybe I'll just stop the sharing so we could, if everyone can see your faces more when you talk. But again, full circle. So I started with this image. So this actually is an image of, again, from Reg and Rose. So it was part of the powwow. And there was ceremonial transfers after. So I think come full circle, a lot of this was led by Reg and Rose. It was a dream of theirs. Agencies within Calgary and the Treaty 7 area have stepped up. We are working as a family, organizationally, to make sure that this happens for the elders. And so I think it's really good to leave with this note. You could see the drummers in the background, as part of that ceremonial piece. So Brianna and Karli, I'm going to get your final thoughts and we could open for questions. And I'm just going to, and here's all of our sponsors and partners who we should actually thank. So I'm going to stop sharing and I will then ask. So Brianna, do you want to share first? And then Karli,
Sure.
You could share.
Yeah, I think just really like my takeaway really stems from how big of a healing moment it was. And to me, it was really significant again and reinforces and validates the role that recreation has in supporting mental health and social inclusion and community building. It was really at the forefront in all of those areas. And because like we've mentioned with the COVID difficulties relating to isolation among seniors, a lot of them were feeling fragile and exhausted. It was so great to hear the feedback of them saying that this was the first time they were able to connect with the community and that they were able to laugh in over almost a year and a half. And it was just a very common feeling among everybody. And I think to finding those recreation spaces where you have the opportunity to connect with the land and connect with yourself and others, I think that's super important. I think we were very blessed that we were able to find such a beautiful location, because I don't think the effects would still be strong, but I don't think it would be as strong if we weren't able to be in the area that we were in. And so it kind of led me to the overall takeaway of recreation has that power to bring together diverse groups of people. And when that happens, you're inevitably able to create like a safe space for people to just gather and just be themselves. And when a space offers that element of safety, again, healing can take shape. It can, begin to take place really. So that was my big takeaway with recreation. But in terms of learning from the elders, I appreciated the laughter that was among them. And it was such a key element in their healing. They've spoken a lot about it. And I've been learning even through the things that I've learned through my dad's side of the family, that laughter is so important in healing. And it was just a great reminder and homage to my upbringing of any time I've gathered with my native side of the family, everybody was laughing. And I always tried to figure out why that was always so important to me. And it was just, the element of laughter, it can bring a group together. So those were really my takeaways, and I'll pass it on to Karli or Janet.
Yeah, that's so great to think of it like through the recreation piece. I think it's super important too to like understand if you don't have one aspect within that healing for those elders, like the environment was super important. The elders being in that environment was extremely important. The activities that they did in that environment, everything just like worked harmoniously together to produce like an amazing event that hopefully we can continue for years down the road. And our funders, like, it's amazing to have funders, but Janet really is like the mastermind behind the whole event. She did an amazing job and like continues to, we build relationships within Indigenous communities, but Janet has truly become like, I don't know, family. You really are family. So I'm really thankful that Janet has came here and became a relative to all of these elders and genuinely helping them through this whole experience. So that my biggest takeaway is Janet is a machine and a rock star, and we need to do this every year.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. And I have to say too, just witnessing the growth, the both of you. And I think it was interesting. I know it was the first time Brianna had been at a culture camp, I would say. Well, no one, I think it's rare to have 30 elders in a camp. So I think it is a pretty one-off thing, period. And then Karli, like you grew up like in that culture with your grandparents raising you. And yet both of you, while in very different areas, had huge growth within those 4 days. Just the ability to see and be with elders, and that many elders in that helping position, had to like just seeing the transition of both of you grow and continue. It was almost like a spark. And I think that's also amazing, knowing too that we have, like I said, have amazing, young, intelligent, articulate Indigenous women who are leading the way in Alberta. So I'm very excited about that as well. And so any questions or comments or thoughts that anyone wants to share? I know we have till 3:05. So any thoughts or questions that people might want to ask or thoughts they want to share? I'm just reading here. So, okay, so there's the question was, is there plans for elder connection opportunities throughout the year? And so, yes. Well, so we're, like Karli was saying, we're always on the hunt for money to do elders camp. So we actually are doing it again this year. So elders camp will continue. We do, one of the interesting jobs we took on for ARPA when COVID hit was we taught the elders how to use Zoom. So we worked with multi agencies to get them computers. And then ARPA, we took on the job of like bringing them into Zoom for the first time. And they were talking and TVs were on and grandchildren were coming through and it was chaos. But we've actually now, if you look at these elders, they are Zoom experts. Like they could run a Zoom room, all of them now. And so we do. So we actually bring the elders together because we understand COVID is still a real thing. And so we do bring elders together in Zoom for connections and ability to do things. Karli and I are also like working with the elders to do like the nonprofit, grow their group. And so we do meet them in person. And we have relationships with them one-on-one, but so we do try and keep it safe, knowing that elders are still vulnerable. And here is an up and coming elder in the making. I love his hair. That's how I looked 5 minutes before our thing started. Just so you know, that's how I looked. Yes, so this is Niskan, and he's going to be coming up. So great grandchild of the Crowshoes, great grandchild of Joe Crowshoe, who started all this work. So yes, so there's opportunities. Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, Brianna, you have something you want to add? That's great. Sorry, I just got Tessina. Hi, Tessina. So I got a note from Tessina about attending from PEI. Yeah, we'd love to have you back, Tessina. So Tessina was part of the ARPA family. Hi, Tessina. Before she moved on into a northern community to be the recreation director. I'm taking no credit for that, but yes, Tessina, if we could get you back to visit us in Alberta, we'll do whatever we want. So let's talk. We'll do a Zoom talk for sure. And so Brianna, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm going to plug it in the chat for everybody as well, but we do on our Alberta Recreation and Parks Association website, we have our Walking with Indigenous Communities section where you can find the Oral Knowledge Hub. And that's really where we house a lot of the webinars or videos or teachings that we've done with the elders in the Treaty 7 area. We have video of all of that, and it's really just a place for our members, the community, the province can come together and continue your learning from all the different perspectives of the elders that we do work with. So I'm going to put that in our chat if any of you are curious to check that out.
Yeah, like we have, for example, a why do we smudge video with Reg and Rose? And because people are like, I don't understand this smudge thing. Why do we actually do this? And interesting enough, so we've had, because I should out like ARPA, our members are like municipalities from across Alberta. And so we've had the town of Brooks reach out and say, hey, can we use that video? And we said we got permission from Reg and Rose, and they did an honorarium, the town of Brooks, to them. So we followed all these protocols. And they, at their Canada Day festival, like they had this big screen and everyone came out. It was COVID, so it was all outdoors. They actually showed that video of Reg and Rose to open their Canada Day festivals so that people within Brooks understood what it meant to smudge. So we actually are using these resources and like to actually educate our members on what these kind of protocols are being based on activities that we've done with them, often in Zoom. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, Brianna. I know we have a few more minutes. Is there any other questions? Anyone want to comment or anything? They're welcome to.
So if nobody has any further questions, on behalf of Janet, Brianna, and Karli, and the Indigenous Physical Activity and Culture Circle, I want to thank everyone for attending this valuable presentation. And I would encourage Janet, Brianna, and Karli to put their contact information in the chat, just in case anybody has any questions that they might think of after the presentation.
Perfect. Good reminder. I'll do that right now.
I love it. Karli's multitasking.
No, it's typing with
one hand typing.
My autocorrect just sent just my name. So sorry about that.
Your email came below it. So
Okay, good.
yeah. Oh my God, hilarious. He actually napped for like 1 minute, maybe.
Yeah, a long time.
Now he's getting tired. So apparently our presentation might have been the thing needed to put him to
Put
sleep.
him to sleep. I just want to say thank you for being here, Janet, for 9 years. You've been
9 years
in person for the first, I think, 7, and then the last 2 virtual. So thank you so much for you and your team's work, Brianna and Karli. Thank you so much for being there and supporting Janet. I think this is just amazing to see you each year. So don't quit on us. Look forward to see you next year in Cowichan. No pressure.
Until the end.
Awesome. Heart. I think we have the box fitness video is going to be happening soon, but thank you so much for sharing your information. And I love the idea of an elders talent show. We're having a gathering in Lytton in a few weeks, and so I think just having that idea is just adds some kind of sense of humor and playfulness.
I love it. At one point, I looked over Matt, who was Brianna's boss, who's like a football player, 6'2", was in an elder conga line. There's like all these elders, and Matt, like in this elder conga line. I'm like, I will never see that again in my life. Which is sad.
My younger brother, don't tell anyone because he's a lawyer. He loves to dress up like as Elvis Presley on Halloween. So I thought it'd be perfect for
bring him in. The ladies love
bring him in.
70 plus. Indigenous, the ladies love Elvis.
I should note, I had the privilege of driving an elder around in an ATV. It was her first ever ride on an ATV. It was great. If you ever have a talent show like we did, you might need ATVs to get the elders around the property. So
awesome. I love that idea. That's great.
Yeah.
I guess we're gonna go back to the big main room, and thanks you guys for a wonderful presentation. Cook Sham.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good job, Brianna and Karli. You're awesome. See you in the main room.
Thanks for having us.